Hello folks, I'm John Pastorek. I'm tying this evening on behalf of the Slate Run Tackle Shop in Slate Run, Pennsylvania, a full-service tackle shop, full-service fly shop, I should say. It has everything from bamboo rods to deli sandwiches. In fact, all of the material we're using today is from the Slate Run Tackle Shop. You could get it from them, you could get it ordered from Orvis, or if you want to go to your favorite fly shop, that's okay too. But good quality material. I do want to show you the material. I'm using pheasant tail, and I like this pheasant tail. This one happens to be from a friend who shot this pheasant a few years ago. It has a nice deep rust on it, but the commercial ones are very well too, very good. I'm using barred ostrich plume, a little bit of red to put in it for a hot spot, which seems to really work on the trout. And for the hackle, we're using Brahma hen hackle. Again, you can get this from the Slate Run Tackle Shop. A lot of people like to use partridge feathers for their soft hackles. I like to use this. I also really like to use mallard wings. On the shoulder of the mallard wings, there's some really nice soft hackle feathers. So whatever you want to use, this has been working really well. This is a rust-colored Brahma hen neck. I'm using tungsten bead on this fly. It's a gold-colored bead. You could also use the brass-colored beads that aren't as dense. Tungsten's very dense and sinks at a faster rate than just the plain brass-colored one. So you could use whichever one you want. In fact, you should tie the same fly in a variety of sizes and a variety of size beads, so that you could use depending on whatever the water conditions are: swift, deep, shallow, thin water, whatever. I'm using an Orvis 62 KC scud hook. I really like that hook for this application. This is a size 14, but I tie this fly in everything from a size 10 up to a size 18. So let's take a look at this fly. As I tie it, I already started it just to be in the interest of time. I have my pheasant tail on here. You can see the tail in the back that's already on. I didn't cut that and then retie the pheasant on. It's all one piece, so to speak. And I have my wire tied on. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my thread forward. And the importance of this wire does two things, which I think are very important. The first thing is it makes it a very sturdy fly. If you do not put the wire, and many recipes don't call for the wire on it, if you don't put the wire, after you catch a fish or two and you use forceps to get that fly out of the fish's mouth, you're going to cause those pheasant tails to unfurl. They're going to rip and tear and unfurl, and the fly is going to be useless. So I like to put the wire around the pheasant tail, and that keeps it from unfurling. Also, the other purpose of that wire is to make some segmentation. And in my fly tying experience, I found that segmentation, regardless of if it's a dry fly, a wet fly, a nymph, the segmentation I think the trout key in on. So some people like to twist their pheasant tail barbels a little bit. That also keeps them from unfurling when they get chewed up by a trout or by your forceps. So you're going to wind that forward. And I always say that neatness counts. Try to have a uniform body, maybe building slightly thicker as you get towards the bead. And I know my fat fingers are getting in the way, but you get the idea of bringing that pheasant tail forward and making kind of the cigar shape that you might read about in the magazine. So there's that nice rust-colored pheasant tail that's making a great body. It already has some good segmentation just from the pheasant tail, but we're going to enhance that segmentation and the fly's durability with this wire. If you hear the growling over there, that's my Australian Shepherd dog. He doesn't like it when he's not the center of attention, so we'll just let him growl and He bit me the other day. Okay, so there's the wire. Then of course we cut it off, and you see I'm using an older pair of scissors to cut my wire. I keep my other scissors good and sharp. And I know you're saying, well, you don't keep the scissors on your hand like a real fly tyer. Well, I'm not a production fly tyer. I could tie for myself, and I could tie good flies, but I just don't like to keep the scissors in my fingers. So the next step we're going to do is put some of this red ostrich plume. You could use any color. I think the red works really well as a hot spot. I don't put too much of it. Again, you'll find your preference, but you tie it in right behind the bead, and you put a wrap or two around that, and it's going to look a little bit gaudy right now, but once you get that fly wet, that red ostrich plume is just going to blend right in and just give a little hint of red, and I think that's what helps to attract the trout to it. It makes it really look lifelike. So there it is, right behind the bead. And some people leave the pheasant tail down for little legs. I've never found the need to do that. I've been tying it this way for a while, and I really like the results. So I'm going to take my Brahma hen feather that I already plucked out, and I like to tie it in pretty much from the tips. And I usually trim this excess off at the top. And I use my hackle pliers to get a firm grip of the Brahma hen hackle. And you bring that in behind the bead. I like to pull each layer back as I come up around with another layer. And again, you'll use your personal preference you'll come up with your personal preference as to how heavy you put this and whether or not you have any webbing built into the fly. I got a little bit in there, and that won't hurt anything. And I like to pull that back before I give it a few wraps to make sure it's secure, and you can see it's really coming together nicely. I'm going to use my whip finish tool. Some guys are real good at doing this with just their fingers. I've always relied on the whip finish tool, and I rarely have any flies come apart. I'll put a little bit of head cement on there. I like to use the Orvis water-based cement, but again, use your own preference. So you can see a little bit of that red. When that gets wet, that red will come out a little bit and blossom a little bit. The size of the hackle that goes back isn't really that important. This is going back to the tail, but it's so nice and tapered. When that gets wet, it's going to look just like a real insect. Here's another finished one. I used a slightly different colored Brahma hen and a little bit more red ostrich in that one. Now, to tell the difference between the tungsten bead and the brass colored beads in your fly box, it's easy to do while you're at the fly tying bench, and you could drop those flies and hear them drop and say, boy, that's pretty dense, that's a tungsten bead. But when you're in the middle of the stream and there's trout over there that you're trying to catch, and it might be a little bit cold and you have nowhere to drop those flies, you won't be able to tell. So I put little dots from Sharpie. It's the old black Sharpie. I put a dot on each side. Kind of looks like eyes, which is not foreign. And then I always know the ones with the eyes are the tungsten beads. That'll wear off in time, and I just reapply it. If you really wanted to, you could use a little dot of black paint, I suppose. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about this fly now. You have to fish in confidence with whatever fly you're using, and that's a big thing. If you have confidence in the fly, you're more likely to catch fish. But more importantly than that is if you make a great presentation. Back in my younger days, I might have not made the best presentations, and my fly patch would be full of different flies that I tried. I'd cast 4 or 5 times with one fly. If I got no hits, I'd change flies, and before you know it, the whole fly patch is covered. You don't have to do that. Pick your fly. Yeah, there are times when you will have to change, but more often than not, it's poor presentation that prevents you from catching a fish than if it were the wrong fly. So this is it, the pheasant tail beadhead. It's not an original fly by me. I don't know who invented it, but I put my few nuances in it, and I've done really well with this year and in the past year, and so have some of my friends. So I would urge you to come up to the Pine Creek Valley, especially in the stretch, the 2.8 mile stretch that begins at Slate Run. Stop in at the Slate Run Tackle Shop and Wolf's General Store and get all of your fly fishing needs, all of your fly tying needs, all of your sandwiches and convenience item. Heck, you could even get gasoline there, and rent a bicycle if you want to ride up into the canyon on a bicycle and fish where other people can't drive to. So thank you again. I hope you enjoy fishing this fly as much as I do.